Hi history lovers, and welcome back to the channel where I bring you new videos every week on all aspects of the past. Today on History Calling, we're looking at the most expensive dress in the world, or at least the most expensive one ever sold at auction. Marilyn Monroe's Happy Birthday dress, so named because she wore it whilst singing Happy Birthday to President Kennedy in 1962. I'll talk you through the creation of the dress, the events of that famous night at Madison Square Garden, and what happened to the garment after Marilyn's death. We'll trace its journey all the way up to 2022 to see how it ended up being worn by Kim Kardashian at the Met Gala, the reaction of the world to that incident, and what it can teach us about the preservation of historic clothing. I'd also like to add a quick warning that this video will contain a brief reference to unhealthy eating habits, so if you feel that that will be triggering for you, you may want to skip this one. Please remember to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel with notifications switched on so that YouTube lets you know every time I upload. You can also follow me on Instagram, which is linked in the description box below. Chapter 1. Creating a Fashion Moment. On the 19th of May 1962, famed Hollywood actress Marilyn Monroe was slated to sing Happy Birthday to President John F. Kennedy at Madison Square Garden in New York. The event was a Democratic fundraiser, but it was doubling as a 45th birthday party, even though JFK's birthday was still 10 days away. Known for her sex symbol status, the almost 36-year-old Monroe wanted a jaw-dropping dress for the evening, and to get it, she turned to the French-born Hollywood costumier Jean-Louis, telling him, according to the current owners of the dress, that "I want you to design a truly historical dress, a dazzling dress that's one of a kind, a dress that only Marilyn Monroe could wear." He obliged, having one of his young assistants, the then unheard-of Bob Mackie, sketch out the original design for Monroe. Mackie has since said that, "After the day the sketch was drawn, I had no idea what it was for until photos of the event appeared in the newspaper. Marilyn looked amazing and accomplished exactly what she intended to. Fox Studios would not let her wear anything too revealing in films because of the previous nude calendar scandal." This is a reference to something Marilyn had done much earlier in her career before she was famous. And she didn't really care because she had already been fired. I think this is a reference to when she was fired from her final movie, Something's Got to Give, but actually that didn't occur until after the birthday event. Her figure was at its peak. The dress was a classic shape of fashion at the time. The dress is made from a souffle silk gauze, which is now no longer produced due to its highly flammable nature, and the colour was designed to match Marilyn's skin tone. This gave the appearance that she was nude, save for the thousands of glittering crystals hand-sewn onto the fabric. Marilyn reportedly paid $1,440 for it, and the dress was so tight that she supposedly had to be sewn into it, opting to forego any undergarments to ensure a good fit. Chapter 2. Happy Birthday, Mr. President. Marilyn was well known for being late, and in a scripted joke designed to play on this, she was announced twice that evening without there being any intention of her actually taking to the stage yet, then made her appearance on the third go. Marilyn walked out, took off her white fur wrap, and revealed her dress to the audience and cameras. There were gasps and whoops from those present, after which she gave a breathy and sultry performance of Happy Birthday for the President, with whom she had been having an affair. It was perhaps for the best that First Lady Jackie Kennedy wasn't present. Marilyn followed this up with a specially written verse of the song Thanks for the Memories, using the following lyrics. "Thanks, Mr. President, for all the things you've done, the battles that you've won, the way you deal with US Steel and our problems by the ton. We thank you so much." A huge birthday cake was then rolled out, and when Kennedy took to the stage to thank a number of people for coming and performing that night, he added that,
"But we're grateful to them, to Bobby Darin, and to Miss Carroll, who was going to come, and to Miss Monroe, who left a picture to come all the way east, and I can now retire from politics after having had Happy Birthday sung to me in such a sweet and wholesome way."
The event has gone down as one of the most famous pop culture moments in modern American history, giving the dress a degree of significance that hardly any items of clothing ever achieve. That said, if you'd like to see some other examples of famous fashion, I do have videos on the pink suit Jackie Kennedy was wearing the following year, on the day that President Kennedy was assassinated, and on Princess Diana's so-called Travolta dress worn to the White House in 1985. I'll leave those linked below for you. When the event at Madison Square Garden was over, there was an after-party at the home of Arthur Krim, who, among other things, was the head of the Democratic Party Financing Committee and one of the people who had helped to arrange the evening's celebrations. Marilyn, the president, and many other politicians and celebrities attended, and in a rather sweet move, she brought her ex-father-in-law Isidore Miller as her plus one. She can be seen here, sitting at the top of the stairs, listening to a musical performance by Diane Carroll, with Mr. Miller 2 people to her left or right, with his elbow on the banister. This, incidentally, proves that, although very tight, the dress was still functional. Marilyn could sit down in it. Another person who was at the party was one of the president's advisors, Arthur Schlesinger, who you can see on the right-hand side of this photograph. He later recalled of Marilyn that night that the image of this exquisite, beguiling, and desperate girl will always stay with me. I do not think I have seen anyone so beautiful. I was enchanted by her manner and her wit. At once so masked, so ingenious, and so penetrating. But one felt a terrible unreality about her, as if talking to someone underwater. Bobby, that's Bobby Kennedy, the president's brother, and I engaged in mock competition for her. She was most agreeable to him and pleasant to me, but one never felt her to be wholly engaged. She receded into her own glittering mist. Chapter 3. From Then Till Now. 3 months later, Marilyn was dead. In her will, she left most of her estate, including her clothing, to her friend and acting coach Lee Strasberg, and it was with him, and after his 1982 death with his widow Anna, that the dress stayed for over 30 years. Then, in 1999, it was put up for auction at Christie's auction house in the Rockefeller Center in Manhattan, where it sold for an eye-watering $1.15 million, plus a $117,000 commission. It was bought by the Gotta Have It collectibles store, also based in New York. On the 17th of November 2016, it was auctioned again, and this time it went for a total of $4.8 million, creating a new Guinness World Record for the most expensive dress ever sold at auction. The new owners were Ripley's Believe It or Not. It's tricky to explain exactly what this organisation is. They do brand themselves as a museum chain sometimes, but I wouldn't say that their sites are museums in the classical sense, and in other cases their locations are referred to as auditoriums, spelt with an O at the start, not an A, as you see here. The intention appears to be, and this is just my take on it, to provide something that's a cross between a museum and an entertainment experience. Basically, they collect odd and noteworthy items, including things like dead, deformed animals, and display them, but not in the same kind of academic setting that you would get in a stereotypical museum. There are videos about them on YouTube in which people have filmed what they look like inside, if you want to check them out. Chapter 4. Enter Kim Kardashian. After the blockbuster 2016 auction, Ripley's displayed the dress, but it more or less fell back out of the headlines for another 5.5 years, until May of 2022, when it showed up here at the Metropolitan Museum of Art during its annual gala, commonly referred to as the Met Gala, and on the body of reality TV star Kim Kardashian. Unfortunately, I can't show you the images and footage of Kim wearing the dress for copyright reasons. However, there's a link in the description box which will show you her on the red carpet, and I'll explain here what happened with the dress while she had it on. According to an article on Ripley's website, Kardashian and her team contacted them earlier in the year to request the loan of the gown for the gala. This was despite the fact that the theme for the event that year was Gilded Glamour, in reference to the Gilded Age in American history, which occurred at the end of the 19th century, decades before Marilyn was even born. Ripley's agreed to the loan, stipulating that no alterations could be made to the dress and stressing that great care has been taken to preserve this piece of history. With input from garment conservationists, appraisers, archivists and insurance, both the Ripleys and Kim knew they could make this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity happen. Kim later told Vogue magazine that, "The idea really came to me after the gala in September last year. I thought to myself, what would I have done for the American theme if it had not been the Balenciaga look?" This is a reference to a previous outfit worn by her at another Met Gala. "What's the most American thing you can think of?" And that's Marilyn Monroe. She went on to say that, "For me, the most Marilyn Monroe moment is when she sang Happy Birthday to JFK. It was that look." In the run-up to the gala, which ironically enough is designed to raise funds for the museum's Costume Institute, which deals with the preservation of historic garments, the dress was housed in Orlando, where Kim tried it on and has said it fitted fine. It was then flown to her home in Calabasas, where she tried it on again, only to discover that it no longer fitted. Determined to wear it, however, Ms. Kardashian took the widely criticised step of shedding 16 pounds in 3 weeks, and at a final fitting back in Orlando, she was able to get into it, though it still would not close at the back. Ripley's later released footage of one of her fittings, I think it was the last one, in which gloved assistants can be seen pushing the dress up her legs in scenes which would make anyone concerned with historic textile and garment preservation cringe, as they press and rub against the fabric and the delicately sewn-on crystals which cover it. Again, this is linked below for you. On the day of the gala, Kardashian travelled to the event in a dressing gown, changed into the dress at the bottom of the famous Met Museum steps, and wore it for a few minutes as she ascended those steps with her boyfriend and posed for photographs. She then changed into a replica at the top of the stairs, and if you're wondering, I don't know why she didn't just wear the replica the whole time, though of course I don't think that would have garnered the same publicity. With her hair dyed platinum blonde to match Marilyn's, though not styled like Miss Monroe's, she accessorised the dress with a white fur stole to cover up the open back. This, you'll recall, was also the way Marilyn styled it before she took off her own wrap on stage. Ms. Kardashian insisted when speaking to Vogue that she would never want to damage the dress, stating that, "I'm extremely respectful to the dress and what it means to American history. I would never want to sit in it or eat in it or have any risk of any damage to it, and I won't be wearing the kind of body makeup I usually do." Nevertheless, though the dress was only on Kim Kardashian for a very short period of time, photos and footage of the event showed a number of ways in which it was potentially being damaged. Even without the body makeup, as a human being, she naturally has body oils and perspiration on her skin, and in the course of wearing the dress, the strain on the fabric could be seen at times, in the form of ripples across her thighs and legs. The stole she wore was in contact with much of the back of the dress, and her boyfriend's occasional hand on her back will likely have only increased this contact and pressure, and she posed with her ungloved hands on her hips for some shots, adding extra pressure and friction on the fabric and embellishments. As images from the event travelled around the world, they caused uproar from conservationists and Marilyn fans alike. Bob Mackie weighed in too, telling Entertainment Weekly that, "I thought it was a big mistake. Marilyn was a goddess, a crazy goddess, but a goddess. She was just fabulous. Nobody photographs like that. And it was done for her. It was designed for her. Nobody else should be seen in that dress." After the gala, the dress went back on display at Ripley's Believe It or Not in Los Angeles, and the following month, pictures of it, linked below, before and after its trip to New York, appeared on social media. These show apparent damage, including missing crystals, others which are hanging on by a thread, and wear on the fabric and seams. More uproar followed, though Ripley's has continued to deny that any harm was done, releasing a statement which reads in part, "Kim Kardashian's walk up the Metropolitan Museum stairs at this year's Met Gala caused quite the stir. But one thing Ripley's Believe It or Not can say with confidence is that it did not cause damage to Marilyn Monroe's famed Happy Birthday dress from 1962. A report written on the dress's condition in early 2017 states, "A number of the seams are pulled and worn. This is not surprising given how delicate the material is. There is puckering at the back by the hooks and eyes, among other instances of damage." Kim Kardashian wearing the Happy Birthday dress has been hotly contested, but the fact remains that she did not in any way damage the garment in the short amount of time it was worn at the Met Gala. From the bottom of the Met steps, where Kim got into the dress, to the top where it was returned, The dress was in the same condition it started in, noted Ripley's VP of Publishing and Licensing, Amanda Joyner, who was continuously with the dress the day of the gala and during transport from Orlando to New York. You're free to make up your own minds about the condition of the dress, but assuming that the before and after pictures of it are genuine, I can certainly see some damage, though the dress has not been destroyed as some commentators have claimed. Still, it would be challenging to repair such damage, unfortunately, because, as I've said, the fabric the dress is made from is no longer produced. Chapter 5. Garment Preservation. So what can this episode tell us about historic garment conservation? Well, I think it highlights how tricky it can be to preserve such items. If you've ever been to a museum, you may have noticed that there are usually few items of clothing on display that greatly predate the 20th century. There are several reasons for this. One is that our ancestors didn't indulge in fast fashion, and were instead more likely to mend and rewear items until they really were done out. Another is that old clothing, before the era when it had plastics built into it, disintegrates in a way that many other items, such as furniture and jewellery, do not. Natural fabrics get old and worn out. They get eaten by moths. They decompose. When human remains from hundreds of years ago are disinterred, they don't tend to be found with much clothing on or around them, with the notable exception of metal components like buckles, and it's not because they were buried naked. The clothing just hasn't survived. Bear in mind too that even the act of displaying a garment can damage it. The Victoria and Albert Museum have an article on their website, which I'll link below for you, which discusses the care and protection of historic items of clothing. It says, among other things, that if you value your costume collection and wish to preserve its historic and monetary value, you should not wear it. Historic clothing was usually tailored to fit its original owner. Although a modern wearer may seem to be the same general size, we are in fact of varying shapes and sizes, so parts of the garment will not fit well. The poorer the fit on the modern wearer, the more stress is placed on the fabric and seams, and the more likely it will be damaged. Wearing costume for social occasions or historic reenactments has an inherent risk that the garment will be soiled or stained with oils from the skin, sebum, sweat, deodorants, food, or drink. Historic textiles have a limited tolerance for cleaning, so the more a garment is worn, the less likely it will survive. Even the action of dressing and undressing can put the textile under considerable strain. I'd be willing to bet that it is only because of the 2022 Met Gala that many people have even a vague awareness of these types of rules now, and so despite the fact that I don't believe the dress ought to have been worn, I think that a silver lining to the whole affair is the spotlight it has shone on the field of textile and garment preservation. This will hopefully dissuade others in the future from making similar decisions about how they treat old clothes, especially those with particular historic significance, such as Marilyn's dress. Chapter 6. The Blame Game and the Future. As for those who have been throwing shade at Miss Kardashian for this incident, while I agree that it was a bad idea to wear Marilyn's dress, and I think there's a conversation to be had about the ethics of piggybacking on someone else's famous historical moment, especially one with cultural significance for an entire country, I think we should also remember that she didn't break into Ripley's and steal it, nor is she a professional conservationist. She made a request, and Ripley's, despite apparently having access to conservators and knowing from their 2017 report that the dress was fragile and damaged, opted to say yes to her. In other words, I think there's more than one party to blame here, and I certainly don't want to see any comments under this video making derogatory statements about Miss Kardashian's body, as I've seen other social media users do. I think that's a cheap and nasty shot and not actually relevant to the conversation. As the article from the Victoria and Albert Museum highlighted, even if someone who seemingly had the exact same measurements as Miss Monroe had worn the dress, there would still have been all sorts of conservation issues around doing so. Regarding its future care, I've read other statements on social media stating that the dress should be taken away from Ripley's and placed with a more traditional museum who would prevent incidents like this happening. While I personally think it probably would be better off with people who would not allow it to be worn, the fact remains that Ripley's bought this item fair and square back in 2016, and whether we like it or not, it is theirs to do with as they please. Just to play devil's advocate for a moment, If other museums wanted it that badly and felt that strongly about protecting it, why didn't they purchase it in either 1999 or 2016? So for now at least, the dress remains with Ripley's, and for all the furore surrounding its use at the Met Gala, I think we have to admit that the incident has at least attracted more attention for the gown than it has enjoyed since that infamous night back in 1962 when Marilyn Monroe wore it to sing for the president. Before I go, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank my patrons for their support of this channel, which helps me to keep creating videos for you. If you'd like to become a patron and get some history calling perks, see the Patreon link in the description box below. Let me know in the comments if you think all the attention, positive and or negative, that Kim Kardashian's wearing of Marilyn's dress has received is merited. And if you're interested in historical fashion, try one of these videos next. Whatever you select, please enjoy. And until next time, keep learning.